Okay, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, January 19th, and the time is 12:14 p.m. We are resuming our briefing meeting for the purpose of interviewing a semifinalist candidate, Michael Ramirez. And at this time, I will welcome Mr. Ramirez. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It sounds a little far away, but yes, thank you. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will introduce Debbie Jordan, our board chair, who will do the welcome and give you your information for the interview. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ramirez, and welcome. My name is Debbie Jordan, and I am the chair. I also represent District 4. Along with me today is our colleagues. I will begin with Ms. Fisher, who is District 1, Ms. Giovanelli from District 2, Ms. Chris Patrica from District 3, Ms. Gwen Gittens from District 5, Ms. Betsy Vaughn from District 6, and Ms. Kathleen Morgan from District 7. We also have our communication team that's here to assist us today, some of our HR department, as well as our administrative assistant, and of course our great security staff. And we welcome you. The board is pleased to have you as one of the top candidates for the superintendency of the school district of Lee County. I'm going to explain to you how the process will work today. Each and every candidate had received the same questions and has gone through the same process. You will have, prior to our Q&A, which will last approximately an hour and a half, you will have the opportunity to do an opening statement, 3 to 5 minutes. Then each board member will begin the interviewing questions, which we give you an allotted time, the 3 to 5 minutes to answer each question. As we get closer to the end, Ms. Fisher will let us know that we are nearing the end, or we're in the halfway mark. You will also have the opportunity at the end to ask any questions of us and give us your final thoughts. So in stating that, I would love to have you introduce yourself, and then we will begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Jordan, and distinguished school board members. Good afternoon. It's actually still morning here in Denver, so a little snowy and icy. So, but I'm honored to have the opportunity to interview with you for the position of superintendent for the school district of Lee County. I know this is a very, very important decision for you and the entire Lee County community. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you today my values, my leadership experiences, and accomplishments that have prepared me for this role. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the other 4 exceptional leaders that you've already interviewed. I'm honored to be considered with them. And as I begin, I want you to know that I'm a values-based leader. A values-based leader who believes in the power of that relationships matter. I'm grounded in my faith and my family. And I truly understand the power of education to change lives. You see, my story begins at home. I have born and raised by 2 incredible Puerto Rican parents. I was born and raised in the northernmost city in Puerto Rico, New York City. I'm a middle child and worked through the challenges of living in New York City. And at 15 years old, my family and I moved to South Florida in the late 1980s. My parents always valued the power of education, but like many parents, they didn't understand or recognize how to navigate the system. So many times, as long as the school wasn't calling home, all was great at home. And that enabled me to coast through school, coast through my classes, actually many times quite invisible. That is until my 11th grade year in high school. One educator, Mrs. Church, she was my 11th grade liberal arts math teacher, who would not allow me to coast and challenge me. It was her belief in me that gave me the confidence and and the confidence to aspire to do more and to be more. And 32 years later, I stand before you here, day one ready. My leadership has been tested in some of the most challenging times in two of the largest school districts in the country. My roles and responsibilities have progressively grown over my 26 plus years. The depth of my experiences as a teacher first, school supervision, academics, operations, finance, facilities. I really see myself not only as an education leader, but as a business leader. I'm battle tested through some of the most trying of times. COVID-19 most recently. Our re-entry, developing safety protocols, safeguards, all while ensuring that we can maintain and keep our schools open with a balanced approach. That is the competing community interests as I work through that process. In Denver Public Schools, our district profile is very similar to Lee County. We serve 90,000 students, 200 plus schools, inclusive of our charter schools, 15,000 employees, and a $1.3 billion budget. You see, I'm driven by my personal story, which I believe is the story of many of our students and our parents. I believe every child deserves the opportunity to have a high-quality education. I have a track record of academic success in two states, Florida and Colorado. Whether improving graduation rates, early literacy data, or industry certifications, I champion all students advocating for increased opportunities and programs to personalize education, while boldly also tackling the opportunity gap for our English language learners, students of color, exceptional student education, and our economically disadvantaged populations. And I'm grounded in John Maxwell's 4 L's of leadership: love, listen, lead, and learn. Love. Loving despite our differences. It's not if we're going to disagree, but how do we do so when it actually happens? And I would say in love and respect. That's the only way I know. I face many tensions in the systems I've worked for.
Mr. Ramirez, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is there any way that you could speak up a little bit louder? Some are having a difficult time hearing.
Sure. I can hold the phone up.
Thank you.
Does that work better?
Is that
Okay.
good for everyone?
Sure.
Go ahead, please, and I apologize for interrupting you.
No, not at all. My apologies. And I've stayed true in working in those sensitive systems, really staying true to the core values and the differences. And over time, I've built trusting mutual relationships, understanding and bringing people together for a common purpose. I listen. So I love and I listen. I listen authentically with my eyes, understanding and paying attention to not only what people say, but how they say it. Understanding the emotion, the passion, the perspective. And I'm a learner, learning what's going great and where there are opportunities for more. Ultimately, this helps me lead. I lead with grace under fire, collaborative and committed to living our vision, our mission, our core values, leading with passion and energy, with the just right leadership, which I hope to bring in leading Lee County schools. #LoveLeeSchools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. I'm Mary Fisher, District 1 and the Vice Chair, and I'll begin the questioning. During the first year, how might you go about determining the strengths and weaknesses of our school district? What specific steps would you take?
Sure. So first, I'd like to take a step and just congratulate Lee County schools. Lee County is thriving throughout a pandemic. And I know this has been really difficult, but I want to take the opportunity to just recognize you, the governance team, your school board, district staff, and leadership. I commend you, teachers, leaders, for the work that's been happening. And as I think about how would I identify and look at the strengths in the district, first and foremost, it's about being visible. I need to be visible in the community, understanding exactly what are the strengths that are happening in the district. That will look in a number of different ways, but over the course of my time in my entry coming into the district, I would intentionally build engagement sessions with all stakeholders. I think it's important to note that all voices will be at the table as to identify what are strengths. I would want to hear from our staff. I would want to hear from school leaders, from teachers, from parents, from community leaders. And I want to hear from students. intentionality around the engagement and trying to understand all the things that are going great, because there are many, many things the celebrations that are going great. I commend you for the work around your strategic plan and the Envision 2030 and the clear focus is provided. The technology and ensuring and trying to address the digital divide as we've navigated the pandemic. The understanding and leaning in more to what those pieces are and really trying to understand how to address them, as well as providing an opportunity to understand where are there opportunities. I think it's really, really important that I'm clear in my vision to be visible and in the community, engaging with all stakeholder groups to understand truly what is the great that's happening in Lee County and what are the areas that we need to improve on.
Go ahead, Ms. Giovanelli.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ramirez. Good to have you. Melissa
Good
Giovanelli.
afternoon.
How would you build a good working relationship between the board and superintendent? Please cite examples.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Giovanelli. Over the span of my 26-plus years in education, I have witnessed the impact of a unified governance team, as well as the challenges of a non-unified governance team. I believe the superintendent is only as effective as the board allows him or her to be, and that the board is only as effective as the superintendent allows them to be. And understanding the role of the superintendent is strictly for just one person, so it depends on all. So starting with this governance team and building that relationship, I believe it's very, very important that there's clear vision and alignment to what the board's goals are, and as we partner together in support of students in our community. You know, as the sole employee of the board, it's my responsibility to ensure that the relationship between the superintendent, myself, and the board governance team is one that is open, honest, transparent, and the communication is grounded in what's best for our students. But I would share is working with the board, communication, and and when in doubt, over-communicate. Our board must know, you must know everything that's happening. I believe in no surprises. In my current role, I have regular interactions with our board members, whether in board meetings, workshops, presentations, closed-door sessions, weekly written communication. The expectation is that weekly communication happens to all board members. All board members receive the same communication. In addition to that communication, building one-on-one relations, one-on-one interactions and one-on-one meetings with board members, building the relationships. I would envision in working with the board, in working with you, the board, I envision board retreats to really ground us, reviewing and understanding what actually all our roles and responsibilities, but most importantly, to ensure that there is clear vision and alignment as we look through. I had the opportunity to review the most recent board manual, and I was reading through some of the pieces around protocols for engagement. And really, my vision is really to work together collaboratively with our board, with you, the board, working together across our community.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is there any, Ms. Gittens is having difficulties hearing. I don't know if anyone else is having difficulties.
I was having difficulty until I watched him while he was speaking. Watching him while he was speaking helped clarify the words he was saying. Sir, this is not your fault. This is the fault of aged technology. You're doing great. It's a problem on our end.
It's just.
Would it be better if I put earplugs in?
Would that be better if he, they're shaking their head yes.
Let me try. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
There's a lot going on here, so give me a second.
That's okay.
I can hear him, it's just garbled at times, and I don't
The
understand.
way the sound is, I agree with you.
I sound a lot better in person than over the video.
I understand because I listen to a 2-year-old all the time.
I listen to music
Is
with.
that better by chance?
Yes, it is to me.
Okay.
Yes.
You're fine. We're gonna attempt this again. Thank you so much for having so much
Yeah.
patience. Ms.
Thank you.
Good morning / afternoon, Mr. Ramirez. Chris Patrica here. Your question is, please describe a time or a setting where inequity and implied bias came to light, and from your position, how you addressed it, and what were the individual and/or organizational outcomes, please.
Wow. So, can you just repeat the question one more time? I want to make sure I captured it all.
Absolutely. Please describe a time or a setting where inequity and implied bias came to light, and from your position, how you addressed it, and what were the individual and/or organizational outcomes.
Sure. So, great question. When you talk about implied bias, I believe in being a one-trial learner. So I want to be smarter today than I was yesterday. And when we talk about implied bias, and I recognize implied bias affects decisions, behaviors, and interactions. And I would share that currently as a school leadership team here in Denver Public Schools, we're actually going through a book study focused on implied bias, unconscious bias, and really learning, because I believe that is a journey as we work through that. I think it's really important that as you think through it, at least for me in my journey, that as things are brought to light, to not take things personal or not be defensive as you think through that. And so an implied bias or what I would recognize is when I assumed the role of a high school cadre director, I was confronted by colleagues who believed that based on my past relationships with high school principals, as a high school principal that assumed that relationship, based on that relationship, that those relationships would affect my decisions, my behaviors, and my actions. And that there was a question of whether I would hold leaders accountable in that context. This was hard to hear, hard to process as I think through. But I listened. I was self-reflective. I was self-aware, kind of thinking through, and just wanted to understand more. So I really built a relationship with that individual colleague to really understand what was it, and to be able to understand that, and demonstrated a commitment to try to have ongoing check-ins to ensure that my behavior was regulated, so that the experience in my supervision with all of my employees. You know, this was a female leader who felt those relationships with some of the other colleagues, particularly male colleagues, were ones that may cause some favoritism. But I was very clear around my expectations. And I asked them to hold me accountable to that. The end result was that I believe I gained trust not only of that individual, but as a collective body of principals that I supervised. We developed even stronger relationships, and I developed confidence within the system as we did incredible leadership work, while I was able to push leaders in their thinking around just what were the best outcomes for our students and in our work. And over the span of my time, the 7 years in that role, that incredible work led to some of the highest graduation rates ever in the district. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will turn it over to Ms. Jordan.
Okay, thank you. Please share a time when a plan or major objective did not turn out successful, and describe what you did to change that effort, and how was that situation improved?
I don't have any. No, I'm joking. So there are many. So I think that the transparency around, being that one trial learner and just being better each day. What I would share is, during the pandemic, the pandemic has proved to be one of the most difficult experiences, and it's taken a toll on everyone at every level of an organization, particularly in the school district, within communities. It's been hard for students, parents, teachers, leaders, school boards, district staff. And so that emotional, physical, and mental toll over these past 2 years has been tough. And in March of 2015, in Denver Public Schools, we made the decision to have an extended spring break, so we thought. 2 weeks out, our students would be out for 2 weeks, and these rapidly COVID rates would go down, and we'd be able to get back to life as normal. At that time, that was the plan. And little did we know that we wouldn't return to anything normal that school year and subsequently after. And so what I would share, as we began the planning for the 21 school year and the school year approach, COVID rates began to soar across the city. And in that, when you know better, you do better. But looking back and understanding that we were following health data and really trying to understand and meet those needs, we followed the advice of health officials and we pushed back the start of the school year and we began the school year remotely. I say that because while it appears to be the right decision at the time, the longer we stayed out, the challenge was that it was harder to get teachers, staff, and folks to feel comfortable and safe returning back to in-person. So we faced significant pushback with our employee groups and thinking through that. The lesson learned was bringing more groups together in that decision-making process. Again, when you know better, you do better. And the commitment to have collaborative structures to bring people together to really understand. And so what we did was, as we started to think about when and how we would bring them back, we started with our earliest learners, understanding that our challenges at the earliest grade, our ECE, K-1-2, were significantly more challenged with remote instruction. But we developed collaborative structures around that, developed input sessions with various stakeholder groups, inclusive not only of teachers and school leaders, but of parents, community leaders, and students as we started to think through that. We partnered with our unions to develop an MOU to provide health and safety protocols, safeguards, as well as cohorting guidance. The cohorting guidance was extremely challenging, as well as what everyone knows as, I don't know what PPE is now, but I mean, a term that many didn't know, but that personal protective equipment for teachers and understanding that. And the result of that collaborative approach to that, by engaging allowed us to return students by the beginning of after winter break, January of 2021. And since that time, we have been able to maintain in-person instruction, keep students in school and learning, as well as keeping staff and families and teachers, leaders safe in schools.
Great. Thank you so very much. And I'm going to turn over to Ms. Gittens.
Yes, good afternoon. And I just will tell you, my son is in Denver, and it's 25 there, and it's close to 70 here, so stay warm.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So anyway, my question is, America's facing a vast teacher shortage. What strategies would you put into place to combat that crisis?
Yeah, America is facing that challenge. I know it's happening in Lee County, it's happening in Denver, it's happening everywhere. And, we're facing that teacher shortage. And what I would share is, not only is the teacher shortage, significant staffing challenges that have prohibited and really provided really difficulties in running the daily operations of a school. So in thinking about, how would I address that, the first thing is, I think it first talks to the current people that we have working in our district, right? People come to work, they want to come to a place that they love to work. And I think that having a place where people want to work, where teachers and staff want to be, and being transparent with them as far as how decisions are made, also helps them build that culture around the place of wanting to be. So I would first look at ensuring the retention of our current teachers and those that are here, and ensuring that we have the proper support, especially for our youngest teachers. The data is clear around the first, for 1 to 3 years, teachers make decisions around whether they're going to stay in the profession. So those supports to maintain and keep those teachers is really important. But when we look at strategies to increase, I would look at, the talent pipeline of how we're recruiting teachers. Everything that, all districts are out recruiting at fairs with a virtue now because we can't be in person, but doing the things that most districts do. But looking at the pipeline, that succession planning of looking at, I know we have an incredible student program to become teachers within Lee with our higher educational institutions, but also our looking at our paras and our support teachers that may aspire, support personnel that may aspire to be teachers as well, to becoming partners. So I think it's going to be really important that we work together in establishing that, developing that pipeline, ensuring that the culture within our schools and how teachers are feeling, and how do we support our leaders and teachers to ensure that they're in the absolute best place. And lastly, I would mention, really partnering with TALC. I believe TALC is our union, the Teachers Association of Lee County, as well as SPALC, the support personnel, really working together with both associations around how do we address this together. I don't have one single answer, but really it's a collaborative approach to really bring folks together to try to address this, because it is a critical issue that is not only that we're now facing in Lee County, but as you mentioned, Ms. Giddens, across the country.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Betsy Vaughn here. If there were a conflict between different community groups in the district over a particular issue, how would you resolve it? And please cite examples that you have used.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Vaughn. It seems like that's the work these days, right? And with just so many particular pieces. And as I shared in my opening, I think that it's inevitable that conflict is going to come, and it's really about how we navigate and work through that. And within communities, I know Lee County is no different than the work here in Denver Public Schools. Over the last 2 years, I've seen significant conflict from communities. And I think first and foremost, it speaks to trust from the community in the critical decisions in order to successfully resolve conflict. There has to be that trust. I'll give you homework. Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, is one of my favorite books. And it talks about that speed of trust and how the more trust that's there, the quicker that we can move towards some type of resolution. And when there's a lack thereof, it actually slows down the work. So I believe that's built over time. So my approach is being engaged with and visible in the community. When it comes to conflict between communities, I have to lead from the front and ensuring that everyone's at the table, being in the community, willing to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly on issues, and really trying to find and working to find common ground. During the pandemic, I faced significant pushback from communities here in Denver on a number of different topics, whether it was school closing, any decision that was made. 50% of the community was cheering the decision, and 50% of the community was taking to social media and other avenues to express their displeasure. So really working together, whether it was school closing, mandates, graduation requirements, and the big question, could we actually have prom in person, right? So just kind of working through all these different challenges. And I think it's important to note in my community here, different regions of our city were impacted dramatically different. And it created just unique challenges that some communities experienced and others didn't. So being visible, engaging in the community, and my strategies were intentional. We hosted town hall meetings virtually and via phone to hear different perspectives. I think it's important to know all voices need to be heard, particularly those voices at times that sometimes aren't at the table. And we engaged all community stakeholder groups in trying to understand what were the challenges, how we needed to address it, whether it was providing rationale around why we were keeping schools open, the decision to go remote. We faced we faced a lot of work to do that. We also, the other piece in engaging communities is connecting with key community leaders. You as our representative board, are community leaders, but also key communities within the community that also can help provide me and our staff insight, and many times provide a trusted voice if the voice of those that are presenting are not. But my decisions around handling the conflict that I believe were the just right decisions that were grounded in not only in health and safety, but in putting students first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez, what has been your success as a school leader in partnering with higher education and the business community? Please mention the partnerships that have developed as a result of your leadership.
Sure, thank you. I think that if every student is going to reach his or her highest potential, as our mission states, it really takes, the old adage, it takes a village. partnership with the Lee County business community, as well as our higher education, our higher ed institutions, are an integral part in that. And what I would share is twofold. I would share just as a school leader, at heart, I'm a teacher and I'm a former high school principal. And so my school, as a school leader, my experiences with the business community and partnering were the fabric of my school, where I proudly marketed that I had over 60 business partnerships in education that directly supported the school. And I also worked with our local, at the time, community college, and it's now state college, to look at how we could increase enrollment opportunities for students and provide that rigor for students as well. At the district level, I've had the opportunity to do a number of things, particularly with the business community. I developed a partnership with the manufacturing community in Broward County. With an intentional focus, the manufacturing industry came and really was really facing challenges as their workforce was retiring, and they needed to attract younger employees into the manufacturing industry. So I worked to develop and provide opportunities and exposures there. Also work with local universities, not only in Florida, but also here in Denver. The Denver Community College of Denver, working to increase, here it's called concurrent enrollment, aka dual enrollment courses, but providing those opportunities for expansion, having a direct connect. It does help that the president of the college, the Denver Community College, is a former colleague and former high school principal from South Florida. But we established that. So the relationships are really, really key. And with the business community, the one program that I would say I'm most proud of is a program that I developed in collaboration with the county commissioner in Broward County, and it was called My Next Move. And it was a program that was designed to address our students that were headed directly into the workforce after college. I believe that when we think about students graduating, there's options, right? Education, employment, enlistment, or entrepreneurship, right? Just thinking about how. And so this particular group of students, the idea of moving into the workforce, and we partnered with local businesses, hotels, restaurants, and actually provided and created a work affair, for lack of a better word, called My Next Move. We partnered with nonprofit organizations, Hispanic Unity being one of them, and they came into schools and they taught students effective resume writing, interviewing skills. And then we hosted this event at the convention center where students from all of our high schools were able to come. Students that their next move was employment, or maybe students that didn't know. Our local universities were there too. Broward College was there, and a number of other universities, to be able to provide these opportunities to students. So, and that was all built on the relationship. The relationship that I have as a superintendent with the business community of Lee County and our higher ed institutions is going to be a critical and integral part of my leadership as we develop these things. The results of that My Next Move event, were that students walked out. Many of our students walked out with jobs, entry-level jobs, but the opportunity to connect. We also had our technical colleges there, our trade school there, our apprenticeship programs there. There are opportunities. And one of the things that attracts me to Lee County is it's not a perspective of just college. It's college and all career, trade, industry. What are those opportunities? And my job is to work with staff to develop those opportunities for students. And partnering with our business community and our higher education institutions will be a critical part of my leadership there.
Thank you so much. I'll turn you over to Ms. Fisher.
Yes. Mr. Ramirez, as superintendent, what would be your role in the budgetary process? Please specify.
Thank you for the question. Was that Ms. Fisher?
Yes. This is
I can see the smile, so I'm just kind of, thank you. So my role in the budgetary process, I would say that first and foremost, the priorities of a school district can easily be identified by just looking at where we allocate money. And as a result of that budget process, I think it's one really, really critical that it's aligned to district priorities. And so first and foremost, aligning district priorities starting with board goals, our board goals and ensuring that. So that would be, as I work with staff, as I work with our finance department, ensuring that there is alignment around not only board goals, our district strategic plan, and really looking at what that looks like, department plans, ultimately the school plans, and also providing an opportunity for the development of some type of program evaluation. Are we getting the bang for the buck in what we're spending our monies on? I think and ultimately the budget process is ensuring that, revenue matches expense, and in a great day, revenue comes in higher than expense, and, that is obviously contingent upon student enrollment and a lot of other factors that come in by our state, as defined by our state legislators. Here in Denver, what I would share is the development of the budget process. I actually held 7 o'clock this morning, because I'm moonlighting, I'm working and doing this today as well. So this morning, 7 a.m., I was able to have a call with all school leaders, and we actually kicked off our budget process this morning for the 22-23 school year. And it's a proactive, my approach is proactive and really putting in front of our leaders. I think my role is to really be clear to ensure that all staff understand and we're transparent in that budgetary process around how we think about where we spend our dollars and how we allocate our dollars. The district process that I work collaboratively with our finance department is one that is collaborative and is transparent. We have a budget advisory council that's made up of district staff, community members, and parents. And so part of my role is ensuring that we have those systems so that transparency and accountability around how our dollars are spent, and that there are feedback loops to give us feedback around how we're doing things and what we're doing. And those priorities, our grounding principles, is what we share. We share all with our staff as well as with leaders. My role is to ensure that that's happening, and that staff know that our priorities match our budget, they're aligned to our core values, but that transparency is so critical. And I just like to highlight, the incredible work in Lee County, and I look to on the website very clearly the transparency around where our budgetary dollars are, where our capital funding is, and it's really clear for our community around that. And I think the last thing I mentioned is there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of inquiry around, ESSER funding, and this belief that, ESSER funding is going to solve all things. And I think that we know that, it's funding for the next 2 or 3 years, and really developing those intentionalities around whether it's learning supports, social, emotional, and mental health, but ensuring that those allocations are not only spent according to federal guidelines, but also in what's in the best interest of our students. So my role will be one that's proactive and working together and ensuring that we are as transparent as possible in that process.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And now Mrs. Giovanelli will have a question for you.
Hi. What experience have you had in working within a community of diverse elements such as socioeconomic, educational levels, culture, race, and ethnicity? Please explain in detail.
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it that well. I apologize.
What experience have you had in working within a community of diverse elements such as socioeconomic, educational levels, culture, race, and ethnicity? Please explain in detail.
Sure. So thank you for that question, Ms. Giovanelli. So I've had the opportunity to work in 2 large school districts that are very diverse. The current district that I work in, Denver, is a school district that is 70% of our school district is students of color. And a really important piece of that, 54% of which are Hispanic, which is, and just working through, so I think, so my approach in working with them is, first and foremost, really leaning into the diversity of the diversity of the needs that the community has. When you talk about, data and working with the community, we have taken a pretty intentional work here in Denver around just addressing, academic gaps for students, particularly our students of color, and understanding where those gaps are. And we've been very transparent around naming where we have fallen short as a district. And so the importance of having authentic community engagement around that is really been a core of the work and how I've addressed it. Listening and learning what are the needs, and being very honest around where we have fallen short have been really critical pieces to that. And that engagement, I would say that engagement here in Denver has been ongoing. It's not a one and done. It's ongoing engagement and a commitment to engage our families around what those experiences are. We've had intentionality around surveys that we provide to families, particularly families of color, around their experiences and how they're experiencing the district, to ensure that we're doing everything that we can. So my approach is one that's visible and ensuring that I'm extremely approachable in that. One of the areas in Broward I was tasked with was engaging the Hispanic community that was very disenfranchised with the district, with the experiences that the district and how they treated our students. Broward County is about 35%. Don't quote me on the data because it's been a couple of years since I haven't been there, but 35% of the population identifies as Hispanic. And so I developed, at the request of the superintendent, I developed an intentional program or initiative that I called Mi Gente Mi Escuela. And what it was an intentional effort to engage the Hispanic community, to understand their experiences, and really to open the doors of our community to ensure and let our Hispanic community of Broward know that the doors of our schools are open, and that we need to really look at how we were supporting them and whatever programs and things that needed to be established. And so the plans, when you ask the question around how to address it, and the plans, they must be developed with community. I know what I have found in my time is where the resistance comes is when communities feel like things are being done at them rather than being done with them. So our approach has been really to be at the table, have intentional, ongoing conversations, as I shared earlier, leading from the front, and really just understanding what those needs are in order to find resolution in meeting those needs, and ultimately so we improve outcomes for students.
Thank you. Ms. Patrica.
Thank you. Before you go, Ms. Patrica, I just want to note that we are halfway through the interview questions, and we have about 30 minutes left. Ms. Patrica?
Thank you. Next question is, what would you do to positively impact student achievement? Please discuss in detail successful efforts to narrow or close identified achievement gaps in your current district.
Sure. So I would say that when you talk achievement, when you talk student achievement, what's clear is that high quality Tier 1 instruction is really paramount and the most important thing, along with a highly effective classroom, which is the most important factor in improving student achievement. And so in my current district, we've had intentional work with our early literacy data, really grounded in the science of reading. We have when you look at the academic achievement of our students here in Denver, we've had significant gaps of students across, particularly our students of color, underrepresented students, but all students, and we're not meeting the mark. So the intentionality in what I've done here in Denver is work directly with our academics department. The academics department and the schools divisions here in Denver are aligned and are actually one team that directly supports schools around that. And really pouring into ensuring that how literacy is taught is grounded in research-based strategies around the science of reading and how students learn. We have readiness indicators for students coming into kindergarten and understanding, where they are. And, our data shows here in Denver that, we have a large percentage of our population that is not in pre-K. They're not in preschool. So they come in many times not kindergarten ready. So that approach in working specifically and intentionally, not only with school leaders, but with teachers and developing those processes. Our teachers currently here in Denver are going through a year-long modules around the science of reading to ensure that we increase and that we work to know what are the highest impact strategies in teaching reading for our youngest learners. We know what the data says about third grade reading and how critical it is, But that kindergarten, first and second grade, those experiences leading up to that is really important. And just some intentional work around not only looking at the professional development for staff and teachers and principals, but also looking at providing opportunities to visit schools, look at reading blocks within classes to identify look-fors and really help to support. This work is hard. And we're doing that in the midst of a pandemic, absent, at least in Colorado, of state data. We didn't have state data, and this year we have that. We do have ongoing progress monitoring components, and those progress monitoring components are showing that we're making gains and making increases. The last increase we had was about a 3% growth of where students are at, but there's an intentionality there. My work in Denver, that focus around early literacy has been really a key piece.
Thank you. Ms. Jordan is next.
Okay, thank you. My question is, what do you consider to be your major strengths as an administrator? What have you targeted for personal or professional improvements? Please.
Thank you. I would say my major strength as an administrator, as a leader, I would start with my ability to communicate. So my communication and interpersonal skills and being able to effectively communicate not only orally, but written communication, as well as ongoing and developing relationships, is really a big key to my work. I'm a systems thinker, and the personal accountability that I have of myself and of staff is another strength as far as I build systems to really ensure how we not only have the accountability piece, but also how we have the supports around what that is and what that looks like. And thirdly, I would say my third thing I would say is my ability to work with diverse groups, working towards common ground, finding common purpose and understanding as we come to work together is a strength. And lastly, I would say resiliency. Resiliency because I believe I'm an administrator that's graced under fire. I've been tested under the most extreme pressures. When they talk about how steel is made with heat and pressure. I faced that heat and pressure in so many pieces and so many ways to really be able to come out on the other side resilient. In my 3 years in Denver, I've loved my experiences here. I've worked with 3 superintendents in 3 years here as a deputy superintendent. So my resiliency and my ability to do all of the things I mentioned, build communication and interpersonal skills, the accountability piece has been really, really important. And as far as professional development, I participated in 2 superintendent academies that have really allowed me the preparation to be able to continue to grow. I'm a learner. I just most recently participated in the Superintendent's Academy with the Innovation for Education, the Institute for Educational Innovation this past fall. Just learning. I'm a learner. I want to learn more. I don't know it all, and I want to make sure that not only am I growing myself, but I'm also building a team of folks that really know actually more than I do, so that we can help together really be able to build and lead the work.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And I'm turning this over to Ms. Gittens.
Thank you. And my question is, how would you handle decisions that are unpopular with the public but educationally necessary? Please cite actual examples.
Yeah. It's hard to get out of the pandemic because, that's just the realm of what we've been living the last 3 years. And I'd say how I would handle those decisions, Ms. Giddens, is really, as I mentioned, we have to be in front of those decisions, and we have to be able to explain the why we're making the decision. Understand that sometimes they're not popular. There have been many decisions that have not been popular over the last 2.5+ years. But ensuring that we're grounding those decisions in what's best for students and students first is really, really, it's just important. It's just how I'm wired. It's what I would communicate. And when you talk about those competing interests that are educationally sound, we have to ground it, through this process. The decision to keep students in school has been one where there's been a lot of controversy. In Colorado, different than Denver, different than Florida, Colorado is a local control state. So local districts, and there are many, have the authority to make those decisions are left there. And so there are positives to that, and there are challenges that come with that. So a lot of those decisions were locally controlled, so there was inconsistency in what some districts did or not. But grounding it in what was best for students, and I would say educationally sound and really looking at the data, it's most important that we build trust with the community, that they trust that we are making those educationally sound decisions around that, and explain the why, and committing to ongoing conversation. There's going to be decisions that we make that will be cheered, and there's going to be decisions that we make that probably would call for many speakers to come to speak at the board. And really working through what does that look like. But if we ground it in the decisions that are based on what's best for students educationally, we have to build that trusted community that as educational experts, we do know what's best for students in that, but not dismissing how parents feel. Parents, parents, communities, they're all rights. I most recently read the Parents' Bill of Rights. I think that was passed in October. And understanding what those pieces are, but really trying to come together and provide rationale, the why, and demonstrate a commitment to have ongoing conversation, as we make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of students.
Thank you.
Give us some specific give us some specific ideas of how you would judge your own effectiveness as a superintendent and how the board should evaluate your work.
Yeah. So this is what I get to tell the board how, I'm joking. So I would say two things. One is, as your superintendent, I would look to you, the board, to set direction, to set priorities, and to set goals. And then I would ask you to hold me accountable to what those priorities and what those goals are, as we evaluate the achievement of those goals. Now, I judge my effectiveness. So the coach in me comes out a lot. I'm a former coach. Baseball is really my first love, but I'm a avid sports fan. So the coach in me, I use the analogy of, what's the score of the game, right? And as a coach, there's three things that I ask. What are the rules? What's the score? And how much time is left on the clock? So as I think about how I would judge my effectiveness, the premise around, if I clearly understand what the direction and the priorities and the goals that the governance team, that you, the board, have set for me as your superintendent, and evaluated me on those, making sure that those rules, that the priorities are clear and that we have clear focuses around that. What's the score? Understanding the progress. I need to be transparent with you, the board, on my progress as I think through that. And then how much time is left on the clock? Measuring, where are we? And the time in the clock dictates certain things to happen or not. If we're talking the second semester of a student's senior year, the strategies we incorporate to ensure that our students are meeting the required credits may be different than the strategy if we're talking about second graders, being prepared for third grade and reading, and really understanding that. But my effectiveness really is around open lines of communication with you, understanding the clear direction, the priorities, and the goals, and an ongoing evaluation of my effectiveness, providing that clear transparency would be my approach to think and do that. As we look at the score of the game, whether it's 4 quarters, 9 innings, or 2 halves, depending on your sport preference.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez, would you please describe your beliefs about student discipline and safety?
Yeah. So I believe that in order for learning to take place in schools, our schools must be orderly, and our students and staff must feel safe each and every day. And when you talk about student discipline, I believe that student discipline must be fair and consistent, and that actions have consequences. So I think that there's a piece of that. But I also feel that there's a balance, right? I think the balance around having clear expectations and ensuring that there's shared not only decision making, but really thinking about proactive measures in place to educate students and parents as well, on the consequences of actions, and if we think at a high level, the other piece that I think about is, a commitment to review data. I'm a data-driven leader, so I want to review data at a high level to look at what is disciplined data, what it might say or not say. I would look for overrepresented students in particular pockets as we review discipline, as well as what supports do we have as a system to do that. The other thing I believe is, I know we always go to discipline, but as a teacher, and my belief as an administrator and the work I've led, is that students who are engaged and connected in school don't misbehave. And so it speaks to the engagement within our schools, which is directly aligned to our strategic plan as we think about the work of 2030 and really ensuring that we have rigorous curriculum and kids are engaged, and we have the right supports for students around that. I've developed the school design around that. From a school safety perspective, I wouldn't be me if I didn't share as a former high school principal, as a former principal, the safety and security of students was always my top priority. I proactively partnered with local law enforcement to provide emergency drills. I also allowed local law enforcement to use our buildings for tactical training purposes and all those things. And as the principal supervisor who worked most closely with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward, February 14, 2018, forever changed my life. The devastation of one horrific cowardly act that stole the lives of 17 students that were sons, daughters, brothers, sisters. I can't be me if I don't tell you, that forever changed how I think of school safety. When you know better, you do better. It's important to really ensure to provide training, to take every accusation seriously. I know there's been recent board workshops on threat assessments and how important those pieces are. The one thing I'll share is it's so important to me upon my arrival in Denver, one of the first orders of business I had was I met with my chief of safety. I visited our emergency command center. I spent a day right along, understanding what we do, protocols, also ensuring that the bus stops would be around ensuring the compliance with all emergency drills around that, and providing supports. As your superintendent, I will ensure that our safety department has the necessary resources and support to keep our schools safe, and that we have a positive working relationship with not only Lee County Sheriff's Department, but our surrounding police departments. Ensuring the safety of our students, that will always be my top priority.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Given the changing dynamics of public education, what do you see as the critical issues in the next 5 years?
I'll give you a couple. There's a lot of them, but I'll give you a couple of them. I think first and foremost, we have to think about as we're coming out of the pandemic, what does that recovery piece look like? That's going to be a challenge, and there is so much work done around that. And here in Denver, and very similarly across, we have taken an approach around, accelerating learning. It is not our students' fault that there's been, we cannot develop plans that put this on the backs of our students. And we're not going to remediate ourselves out of these plans. So I think it's really important. It's a mindset around ensuring that we have an acceleration of learning for our students. So that recovery piece is one that I'll name. As was mentioned earlier, the staff shortages and recruitment, and the shortages of teachers, the shortages of staff. I know we talked about teachers, but staff, paraprofessionals, bus drivers. We've had significant challenges here around that too. I did let my CDL lapse when I moved to Colorado, but I have my CDL, and I'm not afraid of jumping on a bus and doing what we need to do for our kids as well. But addressing those shortages in staffing and really thinking creatively out of the box, as well as how do we attract the challenges around not only funding. I know that there's help with funding that we have, but really being able to lean in with how do we compensate some of our professionals, our support professionals in a lot of these pieces around that. And addressing not only the student, but the adult wellness is going to be an ongoing issue. Our students and families and teachers have experienced trauma through this pandemic, and everyone has been affected by it. And we've all we've experienced loss and trauma around that, to really be able to do that and understand that. In Florida, I would mention, adjusting to whatever the new accountability system is. I know there's legislation around progressive monitoring measures and what is the just right around that. So those pieces are going to be there. And critical to any district, looking at capital funding around, school facilities and infrastructure. I mean, kudos to Lee County for the incredible work around, doors, roofs, infrastructure, new school buildings, incredible work. But that will be ongoing and critical as we continue to move forward.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mrs. Giovanelli.
What is it about the position that makes you want to make a change at this time in your professional career? Please be specific.
That's a great question. My wife asked me. No, I'm joking. As I shared in my application, aspiration to lead a high-performing school district, to lead not only a high-performing but a nationally recognized school district that is committed to closing the achievement or the opportunity gap for all students. And I just want to name, I'm not desperately seeking a position. I currently love my role in Denver Public Schools as Deputy Superintendent, and there's incredible work that's happening here. And Florida's home. I lived in Florida. Before I left for Florida, I always boasted I'm a New York City kid that lived in Florida. And now in Colorado, I'm a Florida kid that, really grew up in Florida. So Florida's been home for 30 plus years. I lived in South Florida. I attended college at Southeastern University in Central Florida. So the change really is around not only my career aspiration, but it's got to be the right fit. Not only, this is a two-way relationship. I want to make sure, as much as I've learned about Lee and grown to really admire and understand it, it's about being the right fit for you as a board if I be the selection as superintendent, as well as the community. I want to be, this is a marriage that takes two to really, truly understand that. But I understand the Florida public school system. I spent the majority of my career, absence of these last 3 years. I understand the passion and the complexities of our beloved Sunshine State. The school district of Lee County is the only school district that I actually currently applied for, and for a couple of different reasons, right? There's got to be a connection, and I've had a front row seat due east across Alligator Alley, for the last 20 plus years, admiring the incredible work here in Lee County. I also collaborated with staff when I worked in Broward. I had an opportunity to visit the International Center at Dunbar High School and was able to bring that back to Broward. I visited Lehigh High School around that was an AVID demonstration school. I also introduced Latinos in Action, a program that I brought to the entire state of Florida through a partnership with the Latinos in Action organization. But I introduced that. I know it's a very successful program that really supports our schools, and I believe it's in Dunbar High School as well. And so the attraction to right now and why Lee, I believe the school district of Lee County is poised and positioned to do even greater work for our students. A student body that's 40% Hispanic, a population that I identify with. And I'm excited about the potential opportunity, if you see fit, in joining this team and leading Lee schools.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramirez. We are at the end of the interviewing questions, so at this time...
That's it?
Well,
That's it?
well, hold on. we can go on for another hour. However, we have to make sure that it's consistent with everyone else. So at this point, though, we are letting you, or allowing you to ask questions of us and also have your closing remarks. And I will turn this back over to Ms. Fisher, who is our vice chair.
So then, Mr. Ramirez, at the end of this question and answer session, what questions might you have for the board?
Okay, so this is where I flip the script. Now I start asking questions, right? So I like that. No, I actually, I would ask one. I have one question, and I would actually ask, if I may, if time allows, for each board member to ask, if you selected me as your superintendent, what area would you hope that I would prioritize, or I would look to be addressed first?
Okay, so board members, what area would you hope that Mr. Ramirez would address first if he were selected? Ms. Gittens?
And she's pointing at me, too. Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Your son is in Colorado. I think they started with you because he's in Denver. We have a little connection.
I know, we got that in common. The main thing I would say is prioritizing resources, and that kind of encompasses so many things, because resources for academic achievement, resources for the digital divide, resources for buildings. If you don't need to ask me that question if you watch any of the meetings. You kind of know where I'm going with that. But I just feel that should be a priority, not on the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan, but the very near future. We need to look at how we're using resources like the ESSER funds and the the tax dollars. Those are things that potentially can go away. So those are things that I feel we need to really focus on. So,
Ms. Vaughn?
Hi, I would say organizational efficiencies. It seems like our organizational charts have been changing, and we've debated which department should be where, and I think the organizational plan chart needs a bit of revision, perhaps.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Mrs. Morgan?
Yeah, so building on what Ms. Vaughn has said, I think one of the significant issues for us is building a high-quality leadership team in the district across the board. We have some exceptional talent in this district. We're growing good talent, but we do have some holes, and we need to fill those holes with people who are able to add value to what we're doing here. And then the second thing that is of a personal passion of mine is I want to see relationships with the business community in developing opportunities for children post-graduation. I do believe that every child should have a place to go, and I believe it's our responsibility to make sure that they have the certification, skills, whatever are necessary to move into our local workplace. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Giovanelli?
So Mrs. Morgan took a little bit of mine, but I want to take it just a little bit deeper regarding relationships, starting with the board, building upon that with the community and our local leaders and delegation, and our parents and students. We need to bring everyone together, and so I think that was something you said, everyone has a seat at the table earlier, and just building upon those relationships, starting with our board personally. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I would say all of that with students as our focus.
That was what I was going to say. Students. What do you want to prioritize? Students.
Students, yes. So would you like to make a closing statement, Mr. Ramirez?
Sure, I will. So So thank you for that, board members. And I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity again to share with you this morning. I'm truly honored to just have the opportunity to just share some of who I am and what I believe. And to go back to what I shared at the beginning, I'm a values-based leader, and relationships matter. My faith, not only my faith personally, but also my faith in people and family. This is if selected, this is a package deal, right? So I bring with me an incredible wife, and I bring two amazing little girls. I have a little girl who will begin kindergarten, hopefully in Lee County, and I bring with you a 3-month-old. So part of my hope is that maybe this relationship could increase my babysitters by 7, possibly, because I have an amazing little 3-month-old little girl. So, but I would say so. And people matter. I believe every person wants to feel loved, valued, seen, and heard. And how we do that, it's about how do we work through our differences, particularly in this day and age where there's so much divide. How do we bring folks together for the common purpose, keeping the focus on our students? I understand the importance and the power of education to change lives. It changed this kid. It changed my life, and I know it's changed so many thousands of students that have gone through our Lee schools. I'm day one ready for leadership and ready to hit the ground running. My grounding principle around every child deserves opportunities to have a high-quality education, that's what I believe. At the core, it's every single kid walking in. I don't care what their circumstances are. We might not control what they walk into our schools with, but we control what we do when they're in our schools, and ensuring that it's a positive, it's highly engaging, and that every single student in our school district is connected to an adult that cares for them. I share with you, I would lead with the 4 L's: love, listen, learn, and lead, and really, really understand that. And the last thing I would tell you is that I bring my lunchbox to work every day. And what that means is, a number of years ago as a school leader, I challenged my staff over the summer. I gave them an assignment to bring a lunchbox. Their assignment was find a lunchbox and bring it in. And that year, I coined the school year Lunchbox Stories, because we knew it was going to be a hard year. And really, I grounded our team in the lunchbox being a place where you capture notes, letters from kids, teachers, parents, that just kind of lifted you up and just did, So it became this theme of Lunchbox Stories, and every faculty meeting was around. And I have teachers, and to this day, that was about 15 years ago, and I still have teachers that reach out and say, through social media, hey, here's a lunchbox story, and they'll share a letter with me around that. And I bring that with me. And in my office, if given the opportunity, we'll sit 2 lunchboxes. They are Yankees lunchbox. I am a Yankee fan, so I just want to name that. If that's a concern, we could talk about that. I am a New York City kid, so. But in those lunchboxes sit letters from my first year teaching, from letters kids have given me, from letters parents have given me, from pictures. And really it's about just, and that's why I'm grounded in my why. And when I'm having that tough day, I shut my door, open the lunchbox, and I start reading. I've never gotten to the bottom. Maybe 2 or 3 letters in where I'm just refocused and really grounded in that. And so I share that to say, I will bring my lunchbox to work every day. And so I thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to the potential of what this opportunity may be, bringing meaningful, authentic relationships, starting with you, our Board of Education, our school board, that are grounded in trust, transparency, accountability, and doing it together with you and the school district of Lee County community, hopefully as your next superintendent of schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate you taking the time to interview with us, and you will be hearing from us shortly. Thank you again, and have a good day.
Thank you so much. I apologize for some of the audios. The earplug actually definitely works. I apologize for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you again.
Thank you for the opportunity. I won't say stay warm because I know it's warm there, but we'll keep that here. So. Have a great day. Have a great day. Thank you.
Also. Okay. So. Okay. So now, have comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Yep. Okay, we have two. All right, Mr. Bruno, do you want to address public comment?
I think do it the same way you did it yesterday, Ms. Fisher. So
Okay.
we'll call those two individuals up. I think we'll call Tara Jenner and Karen G.
Okay,
Tara Jenner and Karen G, please go to the microphone in the back.